Hi everybody, I'm Zilla Blitz and welcome. Today we're going to do an unboxing of a review copy of Lanzerath Ridge. Now this is the fourth game in the Valiant Defense series from DVG Games. It's created by David Thompson and Nils Johansson. This game is a solitaire game where you take charge of about 20 US troops as they face the full brunt of over about 500 German paratroopers at the start of the Battle of the Bulge on December 16th, 1944. Let's open it up and take a look and offer some initial impressions. As we start out to take a look at Lanzerath Ridge, let's just place it within the context of the entire series. So again, this is the fourth game in the Valiant Defense series. Previous three games being Pavlov's House, Castle Itter, and Soldiers in Postmen's Uniforms. And this is my first look at a Valiant Defense game. From what I can tell based on information gleaned from the internet, people who've played the other three and are starting to play this one are saying that it's got that foundational game flow and rule set that's there, but there's a lot of variety and a lot of uniqueness to this game. So you're not going to feel like you're playing one of the previous three games just dressed up in different clothes. And that, I think, we'll talk a little bit about that as we look at some of the components and elements of this game. Looking at the back of the box, just some kind of overview elements to take a look at. Complexity is listed as low. On a 1 to 9 scale, I would give this a 3, not having kind of fully learned it yet. The rules aren't overwhelming. We'll take a look at that. 3, I'd say a 3 out of 9 feels about right. There's a few places where you're going to have to kind of be attentive to the sequence of play and things like that, but not overly difficult. If you're looking to get into that subgenre of solo war games, this might be a good place to start. I feel like this is accessible to a broad audience. The time to play says 75 minutes. Haven't played it yet, so don't know. Feels about right. 60 minutes to an hour and a half or so, maybe a little bit longer for the first couple games. The other thing is just kind of an overview again of what we're playing. This represents the Battle of Lanzerath Ridge. It's a one-day engagement fought on December 16th, 1944, where about 20, a platoon of intelligence reconnaissance troops from the United States held off about 500 German paratroopers and fusiliers that were starting the Battle of the Bulge on that day. So the theme, I think, with this, and one of the things that stands out to me as we kind of look at the components and read through the different elements that are here, is how grounded this game is in actual history. And we'll talk more about that as we look inside. But I think that's an incredible strength of this game as I look through it. Let's now open it up here and get a look at the goodies inside. 2-inch box. It's got some heft to it. Pretty heavy here, so pretty much stuffed, although things like seems like everything's going to fit back in once we get it open here. Let's start with the rule book and take a look at the learning load. Again, we've got 33 pages here in the rule book. However, design notes take up the back 7 or 8 pages or so. And then a note to those wondering about the depth and variety of this game. Pages 25 to 28 have a number of variants, including a whole separate mechanic here for tactics cards. So if the game's too easy, you can add, well, that adds kind of veteran difficulty with these tactics cards. Then we have elite difficulty, and we'll take a look at those cards, and a number of different ways in addition to that to kind of changing the difficulty and kind of changing the gameplay a little bit. So it looks like there's going to be a substantial amount of replayability and depth once you've kind of got used to that base game. I did also notice that there's a 2-player variant that says it would be very hard for the US troops in a 2-player situation, but that's something else to consider, that there might be an effective way to play this as a 2-player game as well. As we look, however, at the rules in general, the rules component of the game ends at page 24. That sounds like a pretty significant load, but it's not, because there's so many graphics and pictures in here. The other thing I like about the game is that it starts right out. This is something I saw by Stealth and C2, another game by David that David Thompson worked on, of course. It starts right out with just a quick overview, and then it gets right into setup, and then it talks about gameplay. And so you're going to go right through the setup and you're going to get into playing the game. So I think you can use this as a flow to both set up and just start right in with a learning game right away. The game is broken down as we talk about it here a little bit. The game breaks down into 4 different periods. There's attack period 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then each period is broken down into a number of turns. And the turns consist of 2 phases. Phase number 1, the Germans are going to be doing kind of an attack phase, and then phase 2 of the turn, each turn is the US forces perform some actions to try to defend themselves. The game, how you win the game, let's take a look at some of the components here as we do that. How you win the game is if you survive until attack phase 4, it's a draw. If you survive through attack phase 4, that's where you win. Anything losing, anything getting wiped out before, having to surrender before your morale drops and things like that, before attack phase 4 is a loss. So your basic goal in this game, again, is to survive for as long as you can against insurmountable odds. Let's take a look now at the counters. We have 3 sheets. They're printed on 2 sides. So we have kind of both elements here. And it might be tricky to see on video, but these are big counters. These US counters in their weapons are 7/8 of an inch, and the diameter on what are the German soldiers here looks like about 5/8 of an inch across. Then we have some tokens here that are smaller, but those are just kind of tossing onto the units as you play. So big counters, very colorful. The other thing to mention here is that each counter has the name of the individual soldier, and these are the actual names of the soldiers that were in the battle. So again, tying into that element of history that's evolved here, it's the research that was done on this to bring this engagement to life, not just within a game context, but within a sense of being able to dip into the history of the engagement is really rich. And kudos to to David Thompson and Nils Johansson for the work they did. I got a chance to listen to them talk about the design process at the San Diego Historical Games Conference that was online a few months ago. And they talked a lot about how much time they spent actually researching every element of this battle. So it's deeply steeped in history as well, which is, I think, a fun element of the game. We have here also a few, if you would, kind of gameplay elements. These pick out, for example, the defense phase. There's 2 types of actions. You can take minor actions and major actions, and they're all listed here, so you won't have to dig back in the rule book there. Then this walks you through the attacker phase, and then it looks like here there's, this is really nice, I like this, rules to remember. So everybody's played those games where you're going to be digging into a game, and it's like, oh, you always forget that thing. And to pull those out onto one quick, easy reference sheet is really handy to have. These are all single-sided with just blank on the other back. Now, one of the most fun parts about this here, let's take a look at the game map. This is 33 by 17 inches wide. It's not going to fit on the camera, so I'll show an overhead here of this. But I do think it's worth mentioning that I mentioned this in a tweet the other day, but I think you could just take this map board and just frame it and put it up on the wall. This is done again by Nils Johansson, and it's absolutely spectacular. I'd seen it in digital form before this, but just seeing it and being able to hold it here and put it together, it's just spectacular. And some words again in talking about how this was developed. They used actually the actual region today hasn't changed significantly from back in World War II in terms of its geography and its development and things. So they've been able to use kind of reconnaissance photos from the war to really kind of recreate the battle the way it was. And they actually used kind of distance and weapons estimations from the actual geography here to determine the range factors that go into the gameplay and things like that. So the amount of research that went into representing this as historical in addition to its gameplay elements is just remarkable. And I've chosen some close-ups here, of course, as we go along, but map is absolutely gorgeous. At some point it might be fun to do an episode on like top 5 wargaming maps. It's got to be there, right? I mean, you can't look at this and just say, I put another tweet, I just want to reach in and grab the map and make a snowball, It's so spectacular. And the lighting, kind of that, just the way it just flows across the map here. Absolutely gorgeous, and a lot of information and elements and how to play and how the range works. Looks very straightforward and fun. So great job on the map. Really excited to dig in with that. Now, there's a few other things to note. We have a big bag of dice. So there's going to be some dice involved here, and also there's some blocks here. Now, I know some people don't like block games. Don't panic. These are another representation of, let me pull these back in here, these basically gameplay counters. So you can use the counters or the blocks. It's up to you. So if you're freaked out by blocks, don't fear, you can use these. If you're like, I don't want to put these all over the map, then you can use the blocks instead. So you've got your option, either way you want to go. That's a really nice touch because, kind of just variety of gameplay there. One more big thing, we're not done yet, so don't go away quite yet. We have the cards to look at. There's, I think, 155 cards, I want to say, in the game. And these are basically what you use. I'll show some close-ups on these. These are what you use to basically control and process the German attacks each phase. So you're going to pull a certain number of cards in each. There are 4 decks for the, so we can see here it says attackers 4 on the background. So there's going to be an attackers fourth phase deck, attacker's third phase deck, and so on, 3, 2, 1. And you extinguish all the cards in that deck as you play through them to complete that particular phase of the game. There's also some tactics cards that come here in that variant of gameplay, and then there's some objectives too. So there's a lot going on here. It's not just kind of a straight up defense. These are all the tactics cards that come in play with that variant. And another similar deck here, again, these are going to show through the different attack phases. So working through all of these different phases is going to take a little bit of energy and effort to get through, but looks like a lot of fun. So, I almost forgot, there's a companion book to the game as well. This is a 40-page book that covers the history of the engagement, talks about the soldiers that were there, talks a little bit about how this engagement fit within the context of the Battle of the Bulge. Full color maps that drill down to the exact specific positions of a lot of the units by there. And again, this kind of highlights, here's a picture of the battlefield as it looks today. And kind of representative and looking across the field, and references it to the map. So at the very least, I would recommend downloading this in PDF format. To be able to, the tactile feel of it with the full color, this is really a very well produced piece. And so I really enjoyed kind of looking through this. They talk about how the attacks went. So as you're playing the game, you can reference this and you can get an idea for what actually happened on that day. And of course, one of the neat things about this then is that you can compare how you did to how the actual historical battle went. But it talks a lot about the battle and down into detail. I mean, this is like 10, 15 pages more on just the specifics of the battle and the people that were there, the casualties, what happened aftermath, what happened in the context of how this battle may have impacted the entire flow of the Battle of the Bulge, what happened after they were taken prisoner, but what happened in captivity, and then some of the post-war recognition. So a ton of research all condensed down into about a 40-page booklet that shows the history of the game and how the game sits within the historical context of World War II. So there you have it, a quick look at Lanzerath Ridge in all its glory. This game just arrived, I think, a couple days ago. No, actually yesterday it just arrived. So really excited to dig into play. One quick announcement, I am going to bring a full playthrough of this game to the channel. And to get a little bit more kind of skin in the game from people watching the playthrough, we are going to take volunteers. So if you would like to be one of the 18 Intelligence Reconnaissance Platoon members, just drop your name down below in the comment and say, I want to be part of it. You don't have to do anything. I mean, it is nice if you follow along with the video and maybe make some comments about things that your character did and stuff like that. If you would like to be part of that, first come, first serve. We did do patrons first, so we have a few people that have joined up already, but there's still about a dozen spots or so left open. So drop your name down in the comments below, and we'll be back in a few days. Probably, I've got to play through it once to kind of get a sense for it, so probably back in a week or so with the start of our complete playthrough. But please volunteer if you'd like to be part of the fun, and we'll see you on another video pretty soon. Thanks.